is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network, the number one media company in the United States of America. And I'm broadcasting from the Golden One Center here in Northern California. The Los Angeles Lakers in town to play the Sacramento Kings. Today is December the 12th, 2016, and what a beautiful day in Northern California. I also want to say iHeart Media is the number one media company in the United States. Also, Big C iHeart Media has Charlton and Big C Sports, which is the number one sports show in the United States, as well as the universe. Big C, we have the new Star Wars movie coming out on the 16th, and they also are here. They're going to be pounding out Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C, I want to say also bienvenidos to all of our Latin American listeners, because they follow Charlton and Big C Sports as well as across the pond in Paris, France, and London, England. Of course, you good old boys from Canada. Oh, Canada, our home and native land. I love singing that song, Big C, but nothing's more important than being followed by you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys, Big C?
Hesitant about budget up on whole Canada. You know, it's hockey season up there. And they all swing these big sticks, so you know, a couple times. But, you know, it's good to be back down here in the south. I took the swing up through the northeast.
Oh, yeah.
Wanted to go up to Baltimore and see the Army-Navy game, Charlton. I tell you, what a wonderful setting.
Yeah.
To see the men and women of our armed forces, our future leaders of America, Charlton. And when you talk about politics and sports running together,
yeah,
these are a lot of future political leaders that were there at that game, Charlton. It was just a beautiful setting to see the colors of the Army, the colors of the Navy, to see the contingent that been shifted, rooting and cheering against and for each other, Charlton. And it was the first time that Army had won in 14 years, 15 years since their last victory. It was great to see. Navy had just came off a tough, conference championship game where they lost their top rusher and their quarterback.
Yeah.
They were a little decimated offensively, but Army controlled the game on the ground. And Charlton, they play with such passion.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we don't have guys aspiring to be in the NFL in that game, Charlton. We have guys, young men that are aspiring to be leaders, Charlton. That's what they're aspiring to be. And I think America should all tip their hats to the performance that was laid out in that frigid weather.
Oh, yeah.
They played their hearts out. They played with determination. But, it was just a great, spectacular setting to be in. I also went up to New York.
Oh, yeah.
Well, up to New Jersey. You can't say it's New York. They just, use that name. But we're out there in New Jersey.
Your name popping up.
Out there in the swamps that they call the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
Smile smelling. I thought I was someplace that, something, some roadkill was hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
But, this is a very interesting game with the Giants and the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
The Giants now beat the Cowboys twice this year.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really wondering, how long is it going to want to take down the game? It's probably football time because we're only 11-2 as a team.
Well,
we got a one-game loser. That backup is looking real good right now. But, this is one of those hiccups you expect. Who expected for Dak Prescott to be 11-2 as a starter, Charlton, this season?
Yeah.
I mean, far beyond expectations of anybody with the way that they played. Ezekiel Elliott still had 100 yards rushing in the game.
Yeah.
But, they're going to blame the loss on Dak Prescott. And there was a ball that Dez Bryant should have caught late in the game that would have taken this game into overtime in a field goal position. But, they want to blame Prescott.
Yeah.
Not the veteran wide receiver that, always runs his mouth and crying about not getting the ball enough.
Yeah, that's true.
But, you're going to hear some lambasting in the week to come. Is it Romo time?
Yeah.
Think about how many teams in the NFL has 2 losses, Charlton, and talking about switching quarterbacks.
Yeah, they have the best record in the league, Big C, and it's funny when you bring that up, because I recall, and I just want to say that this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, I think when you look at the Cadillac Escalade, now down south we know you guys take them swamping. Up in the northeast, there's a lot of snow on the ground. But did you see any that were muddy in the snow, Big C? Were they all clean in the snow, Big C?
I was able to get like that because that's honoring the men and women of the armed forces in this country, paying our respect to those who dedicate themselves to service of the United States. And you know, people may not say it's Ohio State, Michigan. They may not say it's USC, Washington.
Yeah.
They may not say, you know, it's Alabama, LSU.
Yeah.
But the quality of the young men that are playing, Charleston, exceeds any universities across the country.
Yeah, it definitely does. And as we get into some college football, you know, we talk about the bowl games coming up, and so congratulations to Jackson for winning the Heisman Trophy. I thought it was down to him and Watson, Big C. I think they made the right choice, but there's still some good old boys saying he's not good enough to be a quarterback at the next level, even though he's better than every quarterback that could be drafted after him, Big C. Any thoughts on that nonsense, Big C?
Well, you know, if you want to talk about that, you know, we can take a step into the NFL and look at Jeff Goff's performances last weekend in Los Angeles, you know, with the Rams, you know. I mean, when you see a quarterback that wins the Heisman, who leads the nation in scoring and touchdowns and, you know, total yards, is not prepared to play at the next level, then you bring this guy in last year's draft, number 1 overall, who can't put points on the scoreboard. So, you know,
Mel Kiper? That's Mel Kiper, Big C.
Well, you know, he's anonymous, Charles.
Yeah.
Mel Kiper's anonymous.
Yeah.
You know, anybody can fluff up their hair and guess at anything, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's what Mel Kiper's down to. He's guessing. You know, he's never taken a snap of a football. He's never dropped back.
Yeah.
He's never read coverage. So when he talk about who's ready and who's not ready, Charlton, tell me what team has he ever coached.
Yeah.
Tell me what GM position he ever had. Tell me what director of player personnel position he had. You know, we've known ESPN over the years to hire a lot of people this frivolously.
Yeah.
You hire people who can talk well. That's what they do. They hire talkers. They don't hire experts. They hire talkers. They have 4 or 5 experts on the entire network. The rest of these are talkers, Charlton.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny, Big C. And as we get into the NFL, you know, you brought up golf, and there's a lot of other things we'll talk about. But I just want to, before we even get into the Rams and golf, you know, Lane Kiffin, I believe he got another job. Charlie Strong got another job. But I wonder, why is Lane Kiffin taking the job at Florida International when he just helped Alabama win a national championship? Obviously, he was on the staff with USC. Is that taking a down step, Big C? Your thoughts?
I don't know if it's taking a down step. You look at the people that he has to recruit. But first of all, was he tired of being yelled at by Nick Saban? Was he tired of being belittled by Nick Saban?
Yeah.
He's taken Nick Saban's office since 2014 to the greatest it's ever been in the SEC.
Yeah.
But he gets no credit for that. Yet they have a plethora of talent at Alabama. Don't ever mistake that.
Yeah.
But when you look down at Florida, yes, Florida International is an obscure university. But also, Butch Davis is at Florida Atlantic, who was a former head coach of the Browns, North Carolina, and the University of Miami.
Yeah.
So is it a step down to be in Florida coach? No, it's not, Joseph. When you look at the plethora of universities down there, you look at the University of Miami, Florida State, University of Florida, Central Florida with Charlie Strong just got the job.
Yeah.
You know,
South Florida.
South Florida down there, one of the universities who was just offered the coordinator at Oregon prior to their demise.
Yeah.
So there's 7 or 8 quality universities down there. Charleston, there's a wealth of talent down in the south part of the United States, whether it's Florida, whether it's Carolina, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Alabama. There are too many students down there that can play football and not enough universities. So he won't have a problem finding talent. What he'll say is like, look at the kids that I developed at Alabama.
Yeah.
Look at the kids that I had at SC.
Yeah.
Look at the kids I had in Tennessee. I was also the head coach of the Oakland Raiders. So he has a resume as extensive as any head coach around. Florida Atlantic, people might say they're off the radar.
Yeah.
But talent abound. Players want to go where they can play and learn. So Lane Kiffin didn't make a bad choice. The problem is that the media doesn't have him to pick on anymore.
Yeah.
He can go down there and quietly build a program, and for them, they have to go chase him now. He doesn't have to chase them.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. Also, I think Deshaun Kaiser out of Notre Dame, he's declared for the NFL draft, Big C. I guess he's gotten tired of being yelled at by Kelly as well, Big C.
They lost two quarterbacks. They transferred about 3 weeks ago, put in for a transfer.
Yeah.
And now Kaiser's declared for the draft. So that was Zaire, who put in for the transfer.
Yeah.
So now Kelly, this leaves Kelly in a quandary. Who is he going to have at quarterback now?
He'll find somebody.
A very dismal program.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Such as you look at Alabama. They lost 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Last year they all transferred. They had 3 quarterbacks transfer out in one season because they brought in this freshman that said, "Hey, I'm going to be here for 3 years after this." Notre Dame is in the same quandary now that they have no quarterback. So will they go out and see one of those quarterbacks from Alabama to come in and hopefully play? But Kelly, with his attitude and demeanor that so many people saw during games on the sideline and in press conferences, who really wants to go play for him and who wants to tell their kid this is the place you should be, even though it is Notre Dame, but really this is what you're going to face in dealing with a head coach.
Well, as we get into the NFL section, I just want to say that this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? Go down and buy that lotto. Big C is up around $60 million. In fact, it's $100 million for the Powerball. I mean, that might not get you out of bed, Big C, but for most people like you and Donald Trump probably don't care about $100 million. But the average person, that could change your life, Big C. So go down and buy a lotto ticket, Big C. In fact, I just want to ask you one question. Now, I hope this doesn't offend you when I ask you, but you were up in the Northeast for quite a time, Big C. Is the moonshine any different up north than it is down south, Big C? Is it the same grade, Big C?
Yeah. But you had to take it in anyway because you needed to keep it warm. And I might have to go out and buy a couple of those lottery tickets. I don't need a couple of space heaters because I'm pulling my butt to stick.
Yeah, that's funny, Big C. I think you're supposed to wear long johns when you're up there in the Northeast.
Well, there was a guy sitting next to me, John.
Yeah, that's funny. I just want to ask you this one more question, too. Now, I hope this doesn't cut down on the tourist level of attraction that goes into the Northeast, New York City. Did you find any wild rats to hunt, Big C? I hear those things are as big as dogs, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
There were some things moving that were scared of raccoons and possums. Made me feel at home, but also made me feel nervous.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to the Cowboys last night. They came across some of those alley rats up in New York City, and they said, man, I don't know if I want to play this game with all that stuff running around. But speaking of the NFL, just some great games. This is a great time of year in the NFL, especially because everybody's getting ready for the playoffs, Big C. This is when every game starts to count. You don't have guys loafing around, Big C, as much. But I want to ask you this question as we'll run down the NFL real quick. The Pittsburgh Steelers 27-20 over the Buffalo Bills. And what a game up in Orchard Park, New York. Very cold temperatures. But Big Ben Roethlisberger and Tyrod Taylor, those guys battled each other, and the Steelers got the win. Also, Mike Tomlin became the 3rd coach in the Steelers' history to win 100 games. And you had Le'Veon Bell just had a monster of a game, 38 carries, 236 yards. Big Ben was 12. He had 12, actually 17 of 30 for 3 interceptions, though. And he did have 220 yards, and Tyrod Taylor threw for 228 yards. Big C, your thoughts on that game? What a great game by the Steelers.
The difference in that game, we talked early in the season about the Steelers' offensive line, how it was built to protect and run the football. And they showed their wares yesterday in the inclement weather up in Buffalo. They were able to move the ball up and down the field methodically. Bell was just a very patient runner on that slippery track, waiting to find the seams to exploit them. Ben Roethlisberger had a tough day, though, Charlton. 3 interceptions, and Ben can't play that way if they expect to go far into the playoffs. He's been that horse that has carried him in years past. But, now he's going to have to defer the ball more to Bell. I know that Brown is a great receiver, and he can make most miraculous catches when you throw the ball to him. But, when you got bad weather, the ball can make mysterious changes in flight. And, their best thing is Brown. Buffalo, people are talking about Ryan being out of there now with the slide that they've taken here, after the midseason. So there's some changes going to come along in Buffalo. They gave Tyrod Taylor a new contract, but they're also talking about, this is potentially a landing place for Tony Romo. I don't think Romo can play outside, especially in the weather in Buffalo late in the year. We've seen how fragile that he is playing indoors. Going outside is a different character, Charles.
Well, I don't know what he's done to make people fall so in love with Tony Romo, Big C, but another game that I thought was a really good game, especially for the NFC East. You had the Washington Redskins with a 27-22 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles. And Carson Wentz had a decent game, but it's still not enough to help the Eagles win because he keeps, not making the right plays at the right time, Big C. And when I look at that game, for passing, Cousins was 14-21. He threw a pick, 234 yards. Wentz was 32 of 46. He had one pick and 314 yards, but it's just like he's throwing the ball and getting sacked at inopportune times, Big C. So he's a rookie. He does have some way to go, Big C, but just your thoughts on the Redskins and Kirk Cousins getting another win, Big C.
The Redskins are trying to stay in that playoff, Charles. It's one of those games that you can get healthy with, playing Philadelphia. Their defense played great early in the season.
Yeah.
But this second half of the season, they have not been the same defense. You talked about the one interception that Wentz threw in the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
It was at a critical time. It was in the red zone. He threw that interception in the end zone, which cost the Eagles points. And that's the mistakes that you can't make when you're a struggling, developing team. You can't cost your team points when you're in the scoring red zone. And that's what he did. And that was the difference in the game. He got a big pass interference penalty to get him down there. And then all of a sudden he gives the ball right back. Making poor decisions, Charlton. This is where he is right now. He's struggling because defenses have become more complicated as the season's gone on. Not like the things we heard about the Dallas Cowboys early in the year when teams were dumbing down for Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Okay? To make him look good as a quarterback.
Yeah.
No one has made that excuse for Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
It's just he's struggling because there's things that he does not recognize. The speed of the game late in the season. Now, he's played more games already, Charlton, than what he played in any season in college.
Yeah.
So his body is getting tired, and that happens to a lot of rookies.
Yeah.
And he's taken a pounding. He's taken a beating. He's been hit more this year than he ever got hit in any season in college.
Yeah.
So that wears on the mind of a young quarterback. So all of these things are pressing on Dak Prescott, but not Dak Prescott, but Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
But the Redskins are primed to make the playoffs as a wild card team.
Yeah, definitely. And Wentz, once they get off to the 3-0 start, he's now at 2-8 as a starter for the Eagles. They're also in last place. And again, just go back to the beginning of the season, and I love every player to be able to play and become a game changer for his team. But I still think about all the networks that were saying these guys are ready-made starters and they're going to be all-pro players, etc. It just takes time. But again, I think they were really overhyped. Another game that had a lot of playoff implications, Big C. The Detroit Lions are finding their own, a 2017 win over the Chicago Bears, a closer game than maybe some people thought. And that game, they had over 61,000 fans in Detroit watching that game. And when you look at the quarterbacking, it was Matt Barkley out of USC. He was 20 of 32, 212 yards, no interceptions. And for Detroit, Stafford was 21 of 35. He threw 2 interceptions, had 223 yards passing. He was outplayed by Matt Barkley, Big C, but the Lions get the win. Big C, your thoughts?
I like what Chicago's done the past couple of weeks with Matt Barkley. I think they may have found their quarterback. He was highly touted coming out of high school at SC.
Yeah.
He didn't get drafted as high as people thought he might go when Philadelphia took him a couple of years ago, and he's toiled around the league, moving to a couple different teams, Charlton, but he may have found a home in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at the productivity of their quarterbacks this year, he's been the top over the last couple of games that he's played, as far as consistency.
Yeah.
But, Detroit, Jim Caldwell has done wonders this year with the team, Charlton, having them in first place in that division. But Stafford hurt his hand, his middle finger on his throwing hand, Charlton. He jammed it in that game. Now, he may have some problems with that hand, Charlton, trying to grip the ball next week and get the swelling does not go down.
Yeah.
Players, when they put on a glove that first week of the game, Charlton, they struggle with the ball. If you go back to Carr last week when they played Kansas City, he had to wear the glove for the first time, starting a game, not coming into a game, but starting a game after dislocating his pinky finger.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the grip on the football. Matter of fact, it was his worst game of the year. So, is that still going to affect Matthew Stafford in this coming week, Charlton? Is yet to be seen. But Detroit could have a little problem throwing the ball down the field and maintaining that position that they have with their lead in their division.
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. Another big game coming up that we saw, and actually a closer game than maybe the score, but the Panthers 28 and the Chargers 16. That game was played in Carolina. Over 73,000 fans in the house for that one, Big C. And it was a great Cam Newton going up against the great Phillip Rivers. Rivers was 21 of 39, but he did throw 3 interceptions, 236 yards, and Newton was 10 of 27, 1 pick and 160 yards, so his game was really off, Big C. But what a game for Carolina. Even though they're not going to get into the playoffs, I just thought that Carolina, they did not have the greatest offensive performance, but they still put 28 points against the Chargers 16. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
The Chargers have just not performed this year. But, Phillip Rivers, you would expect more out of a veteran quarterback who's been around as long as he has, not being able to lead his team to better productivity offensively.
Yeah.
When you look at the non-performances that he's had this year, sometimes he hasn't shown up. But we don't hear that in the mainstream media. It's not Phillip Rivers, it's the head coach. Now, it's a different story when you're sitting there and you don't have the quarterback talent as a head coach like you had in the Rams, but Phillip Rivers has been to an AFC championship game. And since then, he's continuously gone downhill as a quarterback in the NFL. Yes, he's the Chargers' all-time leading passer. He's passed Dan Fouts this year.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing he passed Dan Fouts in is yards, but not wins.
Yeah.
And so you would expect more from Phillip Rivers. It was good to see the Carolina Panthers win the home game, to have a solid game from start to finish. But you're playing the San Diego Chargers, a team that you should have beaten at home, that have had a worse season than you.
Yeah.
So, the Carolina Panthers, as you said, they're going to miss the playoffs. A typical run for a team that has Super Bowl hangover, Charlton. You lose a Super Bowl, you come back, you generally don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, Big C, that's showing so true this year. Also, another game that has some coaching implications. The Bengals 23 and the Browns 10, and they had over 60,000 fans in Cleveland watching that game. And you look at the performance in that game by the quarterbacks, by Dalton for Cincinnati, he was 20 of 28, 180 yards. Numbers are down. And you had Griffin for Cleveland, 12 of 28, 1 pick, and 104 yards. So just your thoughts on the Bengals and the Browns, the in-state Ohio rivalry, Big C, your thoughts?
When I look at the Bengals and not having the performance offensively this year that they had last year,
Yeah.
I attribute a lot of that to the loss of Mohamed Sanu, who went to Atlanta, the wide receiver who complemented, the other side of the field.
Yeah.
Now when you have just A.J. Green on the one side, you can shut A.J. down. You don't have Mohamed Sanu with all the speed on the other side.
Yeah.
So that really was the link in their offense that they lost. People were wondering what was wrong with Cincinnati. It was Mohamed Sanu going to Atlanta in free agency. But, the Cleveland Browns, you have to feel for them. I mean, this is a professional organization.
Yeah.
It just cannot seem to win a game. Corral had 100 yards rushing in the game out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But other than that, they really didn't have anything to write home about. It doesn't make any difference who you play at quarterback in Cleveland.
Yeah.
You're going to get the same non-performance. And they played 7 of them this year, Johnson.
Yeah.
It's something wrong with the organization.
Well,
Whether it's the players, it's the coach, it's something wrong. Whether it's the GM,
Yeah.
there's something terribly wrong with that organization since they brought that franchise back into the NFL in 1999.
Well, I think the problem is they need Tony Romo, Big C. If they get Tony Romo, then they'll get to the Super Bowl, Big C. His win record. Another game that had last year, it had a lot of prestige to it. Even this year, both teams started with promise. You had the Dolphins 26-23 over the Arizona Cardinals, and that's a game that had they had about 65,000 fans at that game down in Miami, Big C. They renovated their stadium, so 65,000 is a pretty good crowd down for Miami, Big C. And when I look at the quarterback, and a lot of quarterbacks just did not have a great performance yesterday. When you look at the great Carson Palmer, he was only 18 of 33. He had 2 interceptions. He only threw for 145 yards, Big C. And then Tannehill was 15 of 20 with 1 pick and 195. I think he has an ACL tear, an MCL tear. So really tough luck for Tannehill. But just your thoughts on how close the Cardinals played the Dolphins, Big C, right ahead in that game down south, Big C.
Well, it was better news than that for Tannehill. He only had a sprain. He didn't
that's
get
good.
a tear. So,
That's
news.
good.
No football player wants to deal with a tear of any ligament, Charlton. But,
Yeah.
just a dismal game when you look at the performance of both of these teams, Charlton. And the weather didn't do anything to really help, either team, because there was a deluge coming down in Miami for this game. But, these teams, especially the Cardinals, Charlton, they're probably the most disappointing teams, even more than Carolina this year in the NFL, because everyone was really expecting them to come back and make a run for the playoffs after the season ended last year. They had some late season injuries. Carson Palmer got hurt late in the season last year.
Yes, finger,
and they came out of the chute this year, Charlton, just slow and sluggish and never recovered. And this was just one of those games that was the icing on the cake as far as this season goes. Lack of productivity, Charlton, lack of anybody doing anything, and they came out of this game in Miami with a loss.
Yeah, Big C, and when you think about it, these are two, great teams, high-paid quarterbacks, but not a lot of performance coming out yesterday, Big C. And then another game that had a lot of intrigue to it. You look at the Texans. I'm telling you, these quarterbacks make over $216 million combined. The Houston Texans, 22. The Indianapolis Colts, 17. And I thought for Andrew Luck to be the most highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, he cannot even outperform, Brock Osweiler, Big C, for the Houston Texans. Over 65,000 fans turned up for that game. But look at these numbers. The great Brock Osweiler, who's just stealing money, 14 of 24, one interception, 147 yards passing, Big C. And that's the guy that got $72 million even without having an interview, Big C. So if you want a job, go down to Houston. I hear they hire you without even doing a background check, Big C. And then also the Indianapolis Colts, Andrew Luck, not so lucky, 24 of 45 for two interceptions, $144 million throwing two picks, Big C, for 276 yards. So you can easily say that he's the reason they lost that game. But I want to look at the rushing game. Houston Miller had 21 carries, 107 yards. But how do you have $216 million, Big C, on the salary for Andrew Luck and Brock Osweiler? And these guys are playing, they're not even throwing for 200 and 90 yards complete, Big C. They have 147 for Osweiler, 276 for Luck with two picks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you look at the last two games we talked about, the Dolphins and Cardinals, you got $200 million quarterbacks in that game.
Yeah.
You look at this game, you got two combined for over $200 million, Charlton, in quarterback play. But you're getting lackluster play. People are not berating these quarterbacks like they berated Dak Prescott for having a couple of lackluster games in his last two games. These quarterbacks have had it all year long.
Yeah.
If Dak Prescott had a played at Brock Osweiler's level, he would have been benched a long time ago, okay?
Yeah, a lot of guys would. A lot of guys would.
But when you look at what Osweiler's lack of productivity, yes, Houston won the game with it, but it wasn't because of their quarterback.
No.
It was because of their running game controlling the ball. But you look at Indianapolis, Charlton, at what point will you ever say that Andrew Luck is not getting the job done there? You can keep talking about they don't have the players around him, Charlton.
Yeah.
But what players do you need around him? Does he have a hand in selecting who's there?
Yeah, he could give up some of that money. He took too much money, Big C. How can you build when he takes most of the money, Big C?
That's what you have to look at. As a quarterback, Charlton, how much money do you need to make your team better?
Yeah.
And that's one of the questions all of these quarterbacks with the $100 million contracts need to ask themselves.
Yeah.
How much money do you need to make your team better? You can't survive on $80 million, $85 million.
No.
You got to go to the $125 million category.
Yeah.
If you took $85 million
Yeah.
and you left $40 million on the table, Charlton,
Yeah.
how good an offensive line could you sign as a team?
Yeah.
Okay, but I know you're going to have a hard time cutting the corners just making $85 million over 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay?
If you guys only profited $85 million on your moonshine, Big C, wouldn't you good old boys be upset down south, Big C? That's why you're running in the northeast corridors now? Hey, that QB clan, they knew what they were doing, Big C.
But that's what these quarterbacks and these general managers and owners need to look at.
Yeah.
I understand the level of a franchise quarterback, but you got to put a cap on a franchise quarterback, Charlton, because all the players are in the game trying to earn a living.
Yeah.
But if you want to protect your so-called franchise quarterback, Charlton, then you're going to have to pay him a little less and invest in your offensive line, because we've heard this for years in Indianapolis. Luck's been around, 5 years now,
Yeah.
4 years now,
Yeah.
Charlton? They have not invested in the offensive line. They've around him, Charlton.
Yeah.
These are the things when you look at organizations and you start talking about the problems within an organization. Where are you investing the money? Look at the Oakland Raiders, how much money they put in their offensive line. Look how much money the Pittsburgh Steelers put into their offensive line. They're getting productivity from them. You're not hearing about their quarterbacks being beat up every week, okay?
Yeah.
From pass rush. So this is where you learn how to build teams. Look at those teams that are having success.
Yeah.
Take a little money out of the quarterback's pocket. Make him restructure his contract. What's this guy's name to play in New England?
Yeah.
Tom Brady. Yeah, Tom Brady. You know, Tom Brady's making between $14 and $17 million a year. A lot of money.
He's
Okay?
broke.
A lot of
Tom
money.
Brady's broke, Big Z.
He's only making $14 million this year. $14 million, okay?
Yeah.
But damn, how many times does he get sacked? How many wins does he have?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to take a page out of New England and Tom Brady. Say, hey, the guy is great. He wants to win, all right?
Yeah.
Or does he just wants to be the highest paid player in the league? So, do you want to be the highest paid player in the league and never get a Super Bowl ring? Or do you want to be a team player and get 4 or 5?
You want to be a team player, get 4 or 5, and be the highest paid player in the league, Big C. From what I hear, that's how they tell me in the back of the day. Anyway, Big C. I also want to say that this segment is sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. Also, we are endorsed by the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. We're also working with all of the unions in the country under the AFL-CIO. That means the guy that Donald Trump was tweeting about, Big C, he can also get covered by United Labor. And we are looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers because we simply want to put people back to work. I'm also bringing on a product called Athletic Insurance. So if you're a sports team anywhere in the United States, from college all the way down to your Pop Warner leagues, even the pro players, we can get you insured in all 50 states, Big C. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide. iHeart Radio, the #1 media company in the United States. Big C, there's a game that, and I know as an athlete, there has to be some kind of a code, but we know not everybody plays by that code. When I look at the Tennessee Titans and the Denver Broncos, there's a player who got his knee taken out, Big C. I don't think there's any room for that type of behavior, but we know it exists, and I can't remember his name, but he didn't think it was a dirty play, Big C. If you saw it and think about it, your thoughts on players hitting your fellow brethren in the knee, Big C? That just doesn't seem to be a cool thing to do, Big C.
Well, I'll tell you the chicken receiver that did that, you know, and it was a bunch of bull crap.
Yeah.
But what he did, that was Harry Douglas.
Okay.
Harry Douglas, a second-tier receiver with the Tennessee Titans, took a cheap shot on a defensive back for the Denver Broncos. Now, all you had to do was go stand behind with a chest.
Yeah.
The play was over. You're on the backside of the field away from the play. You take a shot at the guy's knee, his livelihood, his career.
Yeah.
In a very cheap way. It wasn't a football play, Charlton. It wasn't a stand-up play. It was a cheap shot by Harry Douglas of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
And a couple of plays later, when a lead got a chance to go after him, Charlton, he went after him.
Yeah.
Because you're going after somebody that you don't have to go after. And, you know, this is what football players hate the most, Charlton. Is someone, you know, going after me. I had 8 knee operations.
Yeah.
You know, as a player, too many. But, you know, I had 8 of them. And for a defensive back, you know, you call it their wheels. It's like a wide receiver.
Yeah.
They rely on their legs more than we did as linemen, you know, to cover or get downfield separation.
Yeah.
But to take a cheap shot like that by Harry Douglas, if nothing else, the league should find it, and he should really be suspended.
Yeah.
You know, for that, because you went after a player. You know, you always talk about players unprotected.
Yeah.
All right, when you got receivers unprotected, you take shots on them. This was a totally unnecessary shot to go down low like that on a player and not have anything happen to you.
Yeah.
No flag thrown or anything, Charlton. They're saying it's a legal play. It may be a legal play, Charlton, but it was a roughing play.
Yeah.
It was a total roughing play that was unnecessitated that could have caused an ACL, MCL injury to the defensive back, Ward, Charlton, for Denver.
Yeah, and you hate to see something like that happen, especially against your brethren. Everybody works hard to try to make a team, Big C. Everybody's always thinking that the thing about the NFL, you don't have this guaranteed money for most players, Big C. Your career could be done and just one hit, and to have some guy go down and do it, and then not even to come back and apologize. All he had to say was, you know what, that was a bad hit. I apologize.
No,
My bad.
You don't apologize. You don't apologize. No. You don't take the damn shot. Okay, Joe?
Yeah,
that's as simple as that. That's a bunch of BS. You don't take the damn shot at a player like that.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that if the player's running and you're trying to tackle him, you do that. But here was a player who had throttled down. Okay.
Yeah.
He was not trying to make a play. He was not even making an effort to go towards the play. And you gunned at his knee intentionally to take him out. Well, all you had to do was go up, put your hands on his shoulder pads, Charlton. He was not in pursuit.
Yeah.
It was a blindsided cheap shot is what it was, Charlton.
Well, I tell you what, Big C, when you look at that, I just think a lot of guys, there'll be guys looking for him to do it. It's not smart for him to do something like that. Another game coming up in the NFL, Big C, the Vikings 25-16 over the Jaguars. They had 62,000 fans at that game, and that game was played in Jacksonville, Big C. Bradford was 24 of 34, 292 yards. And Bartles, he was 23 of 37, 257 yards. The Vikings are trying hard to keep themselves relevant for the playoffs. But you look at Green Bay and Detroit, the way they're playing. Just want to get your thoughts on the Vikings. What can they do to try to win out, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they're going to have to win out, Charlton, to get to the playoffs. The Vikings are that team that hit that mid-season slump and just had recovered from it. Jacksonville is a team that you can get healthy against.
Yeah.
But, Bortles, down in Jacksonville, he's gotten as good as he can get. When we talk about lack of performance of quarterbacks, a former number one overall draft pick, and I think Jacksonville has had that lack of luck for quarterbacks. Since Mark Brunell, they really haven't had a solid quarterback down there, the former University of Washington product.
Yeah.
They drafted Blaine Gabbert, in the first round 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, Charlton.
Yeah.
We see where he is, a backup in San Francisco, and they brought in Bortles. You got a number one draft pick on your roster, and you draft another quarterback 3 years later, number one.
Yeah.
So that meant as an organization, you don't know what you're doing, and they're going to be looking at another quarterback in another year if Bortles doesn't pan out any better than what he's done. So this is one of those stink-bitten organizations. Sam Bradford has won more games this year than he has in any year in his career as a quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's going to behoove him to get the Vikings into the playoffs. They can't afford to lose another game, Charlton. They got to find a way to keep this progress rolling with the Vikings because Detroit is not going to slow down. They may have a hiccup in this next week with Stafford in the bad hand.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's Green Bay in that division also.
Yeah, and another game I just want to touch on. I didn't give the numbers, Big C, for Tennessee and the Broncos because I thought it was just such an egregious hit. And Talib is one of those guys that can shoot himself and come back and play, Big C. But for him to stand up for his teammate, I was impressed by that because you really want to see that happen in the NFL. Don't let your guys get taken out and say nothing about it. But, you don't want to see anyone get hurt. But I appreciate the way that players stand up for each other. But look at the quarterbacks in here. We had, for Denver passing, Simeon was 35 of 51, 334 yards. A great game. When you look at Mariota, who I think is going to be a great quarterback, he was only 6 of 20, Big C, for 88 yards. I don't know if he got banged up. They also had Murray throw the ball once. So obviously a lot of quarterbacks did not have the best days passing yesterday, Big C. Your thoughts on why it was so tough? Maybe because the weather's colder now, Big C.
Well, when you think about having a running back Murray in the backfield, Charlton, gaining over 100 yards on the ground, and that's what Tennessee's identity is their running game. They have the two big backs in Murray and Henry.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to pound the ball this time of year. Mariota hit some key passes when needed, but you go back to the Denver side. Look how much Simeon is throwing the football. They have no running game, Charlton. This reminds you of Peyton Manning's first year in Denver when he set the NFL passing records throwing the ball. Yet Simeon is not as accurate as a Peyton Manning was, Charlton, and his team is lacking something. But when you have to put the ball in the game in the air 50 times, Charlton, you're generally not going to win those games this time of the year.
Yeah.
And when you look how often he's thrown the ball more than 40 times in a game this year, Charlton, that's a little disturbing because Denver has no running game.
Yeah.
And we know what has made their success in the past couple of years, even though they've had the great Peyton Manning in the past, was the running game of Anderson. They don't have Anderson now.
Yeah.
They brought in Forsett fumbled against Tennessee. So they don't have security at the running back position. That has made a difference in their offense this year, Charlton. But they're not going to win anything long term with Simeon having to throw the ball over 40 times a game, Charlton.
Yeah, when you got to put it up over 40 times a game, Big C, I don't care who you are, it just doesn't bode well for you trying to improve on the season, or it doesn't bode well for your running game, because you're going to have at least a running game at some point in time for people to even take you serious if you're going to win games, at least head into the playoffs in the NFL, Big C. Another big game that I thought was big just for the fact that it's going to determine who goes where in the draft, Big C. Maybe even both head coaches are on the hot seat. I think they should both be at least given another year, Big C. I think it makes sense to give someone 3 years if they show progress. I look at the New York Jets, the Jets coming across the country, Big C, and they're playing at the 49ers. Now, the conspiracy theory in me is going to speak his mind a little bit. The 49ers are up 17-3 at one point, and some good old boys up in the press box might have said, you know what? If we finish out losing all of our games, maybe we get a number 2, we get the second or third round draft pick. Big C, your thoughts on that game? The Jets 23, the 49ers 17, in overtime, Big C.
Nobody wanted to see that game, trust me.
Yeah.
That was a game that nobody wanted to see. And when in the overtime, everybody started moaning, not another 15 minutes of this, Charles.
Yeah.
But when you talk about two dismal performances, I mean, the 49ers started out like gangbusters. Carlos Hyde, I don't know, it looked like he might have had a little moonshine in the way he was running.
Oh, he was running.
Yeah. That was the best game he ever had as a pro, Charles, and running the ball.
Yeah.
And, but what happened to him in the second half? Did he forget what he did in the first half? And it's almost like what you said, the conspiracy theory. Here's a team that just dominated in the first half.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in the second half, they didn't run the same plays.
No.
They went to a different scheme in the second half. They allowed the Jets to get back into this game. The Jets were trying to lose the game. They were trying to go home.
Both teams are trying to lose.
But the Jets are trying to get back home. They're like, hey, we don't want to be out in this rain in California.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the snow in New York. And all of a sudden, they just let them get back in the game, and all of a sudden win in overtime, the Jets win the game. But, when you look at that game, Petty, there in New York, Kaepernick in San Francisco, neither quarterback seemed like they wanted to take control of the game, Charlton. And like I said before, I've questioned the defensive backs on the 49ers for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they keep a job. Because when we played, we would have jumped on them myself. We'd have walked in and told the coach, you got to cut a trade somebody. These guys keep a job not playing.
Yeah,
I don't know who watched the game more, the defensive backs on the field or the players on the sideline. They have no heart in the secondary in San Francisco when you let this untested player come in and just go up and down the field on you, Charles.
Yeah, net passing yards, it was the Jets with 216, the Niners with 116. But the irony to me, Big C, and being out here on the West Coast, seeing the 49ers for so many years, we talked about the great Ronnie Lott when he played back in the secondary, and there's Keena Turner and all those good old boys they had back in the day, Big C. And I'll never forget, they had Bryant Young, who was on the D-line. They had a lot of good players, even when Deion Sanders.
Right, Carlton Williams in the
all of them.
Secondary, you had Norton in the linebacker. You had some tremendous players over there. Charles Haley, Fred Dean played out there, came over from San Diego. Louis Kelcher also. I mean, it was Washington, the nose guard out of SMU. They had some marvelous players in San Francisco over the years. They were just one of the 80s and early 90s, Charles. When you looked at the pride of that organization, and even when Harbaugh was there, Mike Singletary started that building process with the players that he brought in. It didn't work out with him as head coach. You had Harbaugh take it over, take the program back to the heights that they had once seen before reaching the Super Bowl, Charles. But, he and management had a falling out. And management scrapped the organization of everything that Harbaugh and Singletary had built. I mean, Harbaugh got the credit. Singletary laid the foundation. But management didn't like that, and they scrapped it off for whatever reason. It's hard to figure out, but you're not satisfied with winning. And when you look at this program now, and you look at the last two coaches that they've had there with Thomasula and now Kelly, they haven't brought in anybody, Charlton, that understands defense. And the trend in the NFL had been hiring defensive minds. When you look around the organizations that have been winning in the NFL, they've all been defensive minds. Bill Belichick, former defensive coordinator with the Giants. Bill Parcells never won a Super Bowl without him. Pete Carroll, a defensive-minded coach. defensive-minded coach. Been to a couple Super Bowls, Charlton.
Yeah.
You look up and down the ledger at the teams that have been consistent winners in the NFL, Charlton. They've had defensive-minded coaches.
Yeah.
And these teams have been allowed to develop under these coaches, Charlton. But in San Francisco, the last two coaches that they brought in, and Kelly showed that he couldn't coach a defense in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So you bring him to a team in San Francisco where you lost 8 defensive starters over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And how do you expect him to build a defense? You had a quarterback that he listened to the press about saying that the guy couldn't play.
Yeah.
You lost four of the offensive linemen that you had that you went to the Super Bowl with. So how are you expecting this team to be anything? You had nothing. You had no wide receivers. The running back was gone that you had at that point. The defensive line, the offensive line had been decimated. The linebacking core, you only had one returning from the previous Super Bowl that you're in.
Yeah.
So this was a team on a total rebuild.
Well, see,
but you blamed it all on the quarterback.
They blamed it on the quarterback, but the front. If they keep Balky around next year, I know that some guys, when you look at DeBartolo when he was running the helm and Bill Walsh, and they wanted to win. In fact, he would even trade guys where they were still good because he didn't want to see them not be their best. Big C. That's how Walsh was. That's why Montana didn't finish up there. Lott didn't finish up there. Jerry Rice didn't finish up there. You're talking about Hall of Famers, Big C. But now, when you look at Balky, it's like the front office in the Yorks, they would rather have a friend than a championship for the fans, Big C. It said 70,000 was the attendance yesterday, but there was not 70,000 in the stadium. And you can see the guys at the front of the head office, the guys who draft these players, if they're not getting it done, why are they sticking around? But that's what good old friends do. Because the Big C, another game that I thought was the demise of your friend down south, Big C, for the Rams, Fisher. The Falcons 42-14 over the Rams. It looks like the Rams didn't even try, Big C. Maybe they retired with Fisher. I kind of feel bad for the city of Los Angeles. They're putting $1.9 billion into a football stadium. And the Rams, the heritage of the Rams, it deserves a lot more than what you saw yesterday on the field down in Los Angeles. And when you look at the passing, Ryan was 18 of 28, 237 yards. And everybody's golden boy, Jeff Goff, he was 24-41. He threw 2 interceptions. He had 235 yards, but he just looked like a deer in the head, like it's kind of like those deers that you good old boys chase down south. Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
At the beginning of the season, when the Rams go back to LA, it would be a honeymoon.
Yeah.
Everybody would love them the first couple of games. But if you're not performing in LA, they turn off the lights on the stage real quick.
Yeah.
And that's what has happened in Los Angeles. Charlton, when you look at what the Falcons did yesterday, the Falcons scored 6 touchdowns against the Rams, okay?
Yeah.
6. The Rams have scored 5 touchdowns all year long at home.
Wow.
And the Falcons had one more touchdown in a game than what the team has scored all year long at home. But when you think about Fisher, Charlton, they did give him the dubious distinction before they fired him of tying the record with Reeves, formerly of Atlanta, and losing his head coach of all time in the NFL with 165 losses.
Yeah.
So, he's done nothing in his 5 seasons as the head coach, Charlton. He hasn't had one winning season. Now, that's a long time to hang around and not have one winning season. You have to show some progression.
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants to see in an organization.
And
is at least some upward progression. But he's shown none of that. And you think about the top draft picks that they've had with this organization, Charlton. They drafted high every year that he's been there. So, starting with Sam Bradford on, Charlton, they've had high first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
And they've drafted several of them, but they haven't drafted anybody high on the offensive line.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they haven't done. So when you look at this organization, did they keep him around too long? I don't think they should have brought in the Los Angeles, Charlton. What they should have did was made a splash, hiring a head coach, bringing the organization in, Charlton, not bringing baggage along with you that hadn't been productive.
Yeah, and when you look at what he won, when he had winning teams, he had the great Eddie George, and he also had Marshall Faulk, Big C. And those are 2 Hall of Fame
he
runs.
wasn't around when Marshall Faulk
not
was there, Charlton.
Not Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, when you think about when he was in Houston, when he came to Houston, there was a ready-made organization. The offensive line was in place, Charlton.
Yeah.
It had already been drafted. You had Munchuk there. You had there. You had several other key offensive linemen, and two of those are Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
He didn't draft those players, Charlton. They were already in place in the organization. Eddie George, a solid running back.
Very solid.
You know, and thought you were going to see that with Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
You had a good set of receivers. You had a quarterback in McNair who was a winner in college, though, Charlton. That was a difference in Steve McNair at Alcorn State.
Yeah.
He was a winner in college. And when he came to the pros, he already knew how to win. He came from that mentality and mindset. You know, but now, all of a sudden, you bring a quarterback in that has never won anything, and Jeff Goff is the number one overall draft pick because Mel Kiper said he was the most ready quarterback out there.
Hey, what did Mel Kiper say yesterday, Big C? Have you heard from him lately? And have you heard from him talking about his picks? Ironically, they're talking about Jackson, the Heisman Trophy winner, not being an NFL caliber, Big C. But what is he saying about the guys that he thought would be the top two guys this year, Big C?
I would take Jackson.
Yeah.
I honestly would, because they've showed me more in college than either one of those players have showed playing at a high level consistently.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing, consistency at a high level of competition. So when he wants to talk about players not performing, you know, they've gotten it all wrong, Charlton. They play the color game when they're talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got Jeff Goff, and he's going to bring in a new coach.
Yeah.
He's going to have a chance to evaluate this kid all over again. And I think that new coach is going to see the same thing that the rest of us saw.
Yeah.
A player who is not ready. And you got to stop listening to these guys who are sitting there on ESPN talking about this is the guy that's ready.
That's funny, Big Z. You know, also one thing about Jeff Fisher, have you noticed that he does not need the Rooney Rule to get a job? Big Z, any you ever think about that?
He'll end up with a job next year somewhere. With another pro team, because they'll say, well, you know, he has a proven track record of being a loser. So
Yeah.
this is the guy that we want to have here. And everybody's laying their hat, but, you know, he was a play away from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, how many coaches were a play away from getting to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl? That's happened on many occasions.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean longevity in a job position, Charlton. If you lose, you lose.
Yeah.
No one cares what the final score was. They just want to know the W and the L.
Well, I still think about how I hear, you know, one of the greatest organizations in the football has to be the Rooney family with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was some talk just about 2 years ago where they were saying that maybe Tomlin's not the right guy for the Steelers, but they stuck.
That was going on this season, John.
Yeah, going on even this season, yeah. And here's a guy, the third head coach they've had in their franchise, and he's won over 100 games, as well as Chuck Noll, and as well as the good old boy, what's the gentleman behind him? Cowher, Coach Cowher. They've all hit 100 games because they actually stick with their coaches, Big C. They don't bring them in and toss them out like bad seafood, Big C. That stuff that you guys don't toss out down south sometimes, Big C. You just, I guess you use it for the whatever it's called. But another game that's going to be big this weekend is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. You look at Tampa, their defense is starting to play good football, Big C. A 16-11 win over the New Orleans Saints. And Winston to come out on the winning side of the scoreboard against a guy like Drew Brees. I'm not saying they had great games. You had Brees was 25 of 41. He had 252 yards passing. And Winston was 16 of 26 for 184 yards passing, Big C. But when I look at what Tampa's doing, their defense is playing lights out, Big C. Your thoughts? Yeah.
And you have to be able to play some defensive football this time of year. Winston is developing as a young quarterback, just like Mariota in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And you're not asking him to win the game, Charlton. You're asking him not to destroy the game, not to lose the game for you.
Yeah.
The defense is understood. You got a young quarterback. We have to pick up our tempo of play. I mean, it's just like in Dallas when you think about it. They lost the game last night. They only gave up 10 points. So it's not like the Giants just ran up and down the field on it. And you think about Drew Brees being able to throw the ball at the level that he does over anybody, Charlton.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay, you know, getting 3 interceptions on them. So they're playing a good defensive game, Charlton. That's what people are not giving them credit for, is the defense that they play. And they won 5 in a row. They're going into Dallas. Dak Prescott has had shouldn't Romo get a look? Charlton, tell me what NFL team, and even all our listeners, tell me what NFL team is out there changing quarterbacks halftime of a game. I don't care win, lose, or draw. When was the last time you saw a starting quarterback in the NFL that had double digits wins being replaced in a game or even late in the season? Tell me that. This is not 40 years ago when you played two quarterbacks. Show me where you're replacing a quarterback or you're getting a call for a backup and you got 11 damn wins on the season.
No, I don't see that at all. And when you think about that, for the game with the Cowboys and the Giants, what a great game. And I'll tell you, Beckham is just a stud of a receiver. When he got the ball and broke one tackle, he's fast, but he has breakaway speed, even though he's running on ice big speed. He was the difference in that game. Dallas missed a 50-yard field goal that hit the upright, and Elliott had over 100 yards rushing. And because the ball was slippery, obviously both quarterbacks did not throw the ball that well. Eli had a couple of picks in that game. Should have been another pick that was dropped by the Cowboys' Big C. But when I look at the Cowboys, they hadn't had their luck against the Giants, but you look at the rest of the league and they're doing great. I think when you look at what's going on with the Cowboys right now, they're still a great team. They won a close game over Minnesota. The NFL is hard to win in. But the stupid Jerry Jones came out and did something really stupid. You ever hear of guys that bring their girlfriends home to meet the wives, Big C? Those guys that they get to drinking too much and they think, hey, I got a good idea. Let me bring my girlfriend home to meet my wife. I think they'll get along because it benefits me. Well, this knucklehead Jerry Jones was saying, and he was saying right before this game, right before the biggest game that they had to win, that he would like to bring in Tony Romo to play sometime during this season, Big C, before your biggest game. Now, I don't care who you are. If you have a wife or even a star quarterback, and you're always saying we're going to bring your backup in and replace you at some point in time, that's your fight. That's your fault that the wife is mad that you brought home the girlfriend, Big C. And that's what Jerry Jones has been doing. All he has to do is realize, yeah.
This right here.
Yeah.
Look at the lack of productivity of Dallas' offense since Tony Romo has been activated and put back on
this
the
side.
roster
I've
the
noticed
last
that.
three
Yep.
games. Is
Yep.
that their offense has gone down the last 3 games, like a points, like a passing yards, since he's activated Tony Romo. This team was playing as a cohesive unit prior to bringing Tony Romo in the mix. Now you got everybody wondering, if we make a mistake, is he going to put in Tony Romo? Not just the quarterback, the running back, the offensive lineman, the receivers. All of these people are questioning, is he going to throw in Tony Romo and mess up the continuity? They can't say anything because that's the guy who's writing the paycheck.
Yeah.
And decide, he's the owner. He's not the coach. He's the owner. He's the guy that decides whether you play. Not the coach,
Yeah.
but the owner does.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening. Any of these smart but observers out there, Charlton, in the media, is looking at the lack of continuity that this team has had since he's activated Tony Romo,
Yeah.
and seen how far the Dallas Cowboys have slidden because
It's a
the owner,
distraction.
Jerry Jones,
Yeah.
has put his foot into the mix.
Yeah.
And everybody in the media is not recognizing what he's doing, but he's disrupted the mentality of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, and I think that is so because it's like chemistry in a relationship. I'll never forget how even politically you had the great Mitt Romney, how he was saying that Donald Trump is a liar and a joke and a knucklehead and an ignorant person and a con and a fraud. Now he's trying to get a date. You know what it's like when you meet this little girl. No, I didn't see that.
Did you see all the tubes of chapstick he had?
No, I didn't see. Was it chapstick or breath mints, Big Z? What is Donald Trump?
He had breath mints and chapstick. He was doing a whole lot of kissing.
You know what is funny? You know that good old girl you met back in the day, and she said she'd call you every time your phone rings. You're looking to see if it's her, Big C. You don't even go to work because you think she might give you a call, right, Big C? That's what Mitt Romney's like now. Every time his phone rings, he thinks it's Donald Trump, Big C. The same guy he said was a fraud and a jokester. And sometimes you hire them. What do they say? You keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Maybe that's what Donald Trump's trying to do, Big C. But the final thing we'll get on before we close out the show today, Big C, I have the Green Bay Packers, a 38-10 win over the Seattle Seahawks, who just have not played that well in their last couple of games, especially on the road, Big C. Aaron Rodgers is looking like Aaron Rodgers of old, if that makes any sense. And when you look at the passing game, it was Wilson was 22 of 29, actually 22 of 39. He had 5 interceptions, which is career high. 240 yards, and Rodgers was 16 of 23 for 246 yards, Big C. Now, what's going on with the Seattle Seahawks? Because offensively, they're just not getting it done, Big C. Yeah.
But you know, the quarterback is always going to get blamed for that. But when you look at Seattle's offense, Jonathan, it's been the lack of running game.
Yeah.
In their last 3 games, they haven't scored more than 10 points in either one of those games, Jonathan. So you're not going to get it done this time of the year playing like this offense like that, you know. And the receiving corps, people have figured it out. All they have is a receiving corps because they've tried 3 different running backs, Jonathan. Beast mode is not coming back.
He's not coming back, Big C?
He's not coming back.
Wait, hold on. When Beast Mode said, well, Tony Romo can come back, and he had a broken back, he didn't have a broken back, Big C, so don't you think he can come back, too? Consistency of a running game, Charlton. Russell Wilson has not been 100% all year, even though he's gotten better from the knee injury that he suffered early in the year, an ankle injury. Yeah. But, you know, he has just not been that mobile quarterback, which was a big part of the intangible of his game. And so without having that in the offense, you know, and the receivers have just not been reliable, it's what we talk about, Charlton, when you have these inside players go outside and try to play. You know, they're going to be hampered in the cold. Dallas Cowboys felt that in New Jersey against the Giants. Yeah. Seattle, another team, you know, even though they're from the Northwest, Green is a lot different than the cold of the Midwest of Green Bay, Charlton. Yeah. When it's only, you know, 10, 12 degrees, it's cold. Yeah. And that's all it's slick. So the Seattle offense, they're going to have to get it right over the next couple of games, Charlton, because I don't think they can afford to lose another game and expect to go anywhere in the playoffs this year. Well, Big C, the final game I want to touch on, and this final segment is sponsored by One Life America Life Insurance, the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. And also, we're looking at hiring over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports at Yes Charlton. That's YES Charlton on Twitter. And also Big C by BeneathThisWingsFoundation.org and CYN Entertainment when it comes to promotions. Cynthia Evans, she's the best in Northern California. I want to ask you about tonight's game, which has to have the New England Patriots on upset alert. You have the Baltimore Ravens coming in. They have not been afraid to play against New England, even in Foxborough, Big C. I know the Patriots are challenged by not having the top 2 tight ends tonight. It's just going to be Tom Brady and some ancillary receivers, Big C. Your thought, and Flacco's playing better, do they have a chance to knock off the Patriots tonight, Big C? Well, yeah, Charlton, there is a chance, you know, but Flacco's played well the last 3 weeks, Charlton. He's looked like the Flacco role. He's completely recovered from that knee injury that he had. You know, they don't just rely on Steve Smith in the receiving corps. They got Pitta, the tight end back, and that's Flacco's comfort zone. Oh, he's big. Yeah, he's big time. You know, he's been a tremendous target for Flacco throughout his career. You know, the running game has gotten better. You know, but Baltimore can play defense. Yeah. And with Suggs and other players coming off the edge, they can cause problems for New England. They've had some problems with their offensive line. You know, Brady has been able to slide and help himself a little bit. But on a cold night, he's not going to be as agile. You know, Baltimore is going to bring it. They know how desperately they need this game, Charlton, to stay in the playoff race. It's a playoff game for them. Yeah, it's a playoff game for them, not New England. Yeah. Well, they take a night off. You know, Brady wants to keep going. But this is a game that Baltimore can easily sneak up in and win. Yeah. And tell you what, Big C, there's so much happening in the world of sports. You know, here tonight, the Los Angeles Lakers coming in town to play the Sacramento Kings at the beautiful Golden One Center. But I just want to say what I love about the world of sports. It's a great industry. It's a great business for anyone to get into. And what I love about Big C Sports, not only are we the only freestyle sports show in the world, Big C, nobody else does it freestyle the way Charlton and Big C does it. And I just want to say that anyone who wants to get into the world of media, don't wait for someone to give you a job. Go out and earn it. Go out and make it happen. And that's part of what we do on Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C, I know we have a big week coming up on basketball. I think Westbrook had his game of triple-double snapped at 7. But in the final 30 seconds, Big C, just close it out on what you're mostly looking forward to. What could be a pivotal key tonight in this game tonight with New England at home versus Baltimore, Big C? Your thoughts? You know, it's going to be a receiver step up for New England tonight, Charlton. I mean, they don't have a particular go-to guy at receiver, but they have a wealth of guys that you just can't shut down one. Yeah. Anybody can step up. But LeGarrette Blount has to be the difference
look for him to be the difference in the game for New England to win.
Well, Big C, it must be a great happening when something can get you out of the South, up in the Northeast. Share some of that good new breed of moonshine that you good boys are cooking up. I think you followed the same path, what they call follow the Underground Railroad, but this time you guys are following the Moonshine Railroad, Big C. McKinley made his family wealthy from doing that stuff, but as we want to tell you guys, thank you so much for following Charlton and Big C Sports, the #1 sports show in the universe, and we do it every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network.